Hi, I'm Joshua. I'm an INTP, and I'm continuing my video series on creativity, and the title of this video is on problems and death anxiety. Firstly, when creativity is popularly described, it is often talked about and described as a character trait. And now, when I conceptualize creativity and I think of it, I don't think of it as merely a character trait. I call creativity an emotional motivational state. It is rather a cluster of cognitive factors or a cluster of character traits that come together to give a general impression or result. Um, so, in saying that, I think it would benefit the listener probably to listen to my previous video on creativity and education. It's just that to say that creativity is a complicated thing, and it seems to be an aggregation or a summation of various processes that come to uh, conclusion or a result. And that's why, to me, creativity, it's not something that can be described as a thing in of itself. It's not something that's going to be localized in any one region of the brain or anything that somebody's going to be able to teach somebody straight out, but it's something that seems to be emergent when certain conditions are met. So I would first like to say that creativity, at least in how I have observed it, and when I say observed, I mean doing case studies and research in that manner and looking at highly creative people and how they arrived at their results and just what their lives were like. Um, and it seems that one thing I pull away from that research is creativity is constrained to a field. Creativity is not something, creativity, I say this, that it is a ubiquitous human phenomenon, but when we're looking at it, its emergence is pretty darn specific. And creativity can only emerge within a pre-existing field and domain of knowledge. It's creativity is not something that just happens without knowledge. Knowledge seems to be the basis and the impetus for creativity. In some respect, if you stumble upon something, well, then that's serendipity. That's not creativity. But if you're coming up with a novel and useful solution to something, to some problem, you must be contained, or you must exist, or you must do your job or your work within an already pre-existing domain of knowledge. And creativity is not cannot be parsimonied from expertise or the field itself. It's Beethoven is creative within the field of music. Newton and Einstein, they were creative within the field of physics. Terence Tao or Gauss or Euler, mathematics, and it's Shakespeare, poetry and literature and sonnets. And to me, creativity, it is a ubiquitous phenomena insofar as it seems that everybody undergoes the same processes, but those processes are constrained to a field, and because creativity is stemming from expertise. Now, when I say on problems in death anxiety, what I'm hoping to capture is this idea that to be highly creative, at least I hear experts in other fields and researchers talk about this, but to be creative requires constraints. It's not this free form and wide-ranging process. It seems to be converging in a certain way to where it's hemmed up, it's held, and it only exists within a structure or a system or a framework. It doesn't exist outside of that, or at least you can't get a creative result if you don't make some sort of rules or networks of rules to limit choices and press yourself to a place that you don't want to go, to where a new result, or you can be confronted with the unknown and battle it in such a manner that something new and useful emerges. So I'll return back to that metaphor or sort of that allegory later. But I want to talk about this idea of death anxiety. So death anxiety is a Freudian term, meaning Sigmund Freud is the person who originated it. And I don't necessarily want to use it in its traditional context, but maybe more loosely to a modern context that's used in psychology. At least just the way I think about it is that in respects to creativity, creativity is not a pleasant experience, and I'm saying that it's not a pleasant experience primarily based off of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow and what he observes in extreme athletes, people that sit there and put themselves out to the wind of death so frequently when they're performing these radical stunts, and just realizing that there's a modality of fear and anxiety involved in the creative process, or just even in the process of flow. There's this level of uncertainty and unknown that has to be presented to the individual that they have to face and they have to overcome in order for them to be able to produce a tremendous, seemingly superhuman result. And I don't think that that's something that's constrained to just extreme sport athletes. I think that that's something that you can see in the life of highly creative individuals. For example, Einstein, when he was proposing and writing all of his theories, it was because he was dead broke and he had a family to support and they weren't eating all the time. And Einstein, he wrote letters to his family about how he was a failure and he was at the throngs in the face and within the teeth of nihilism and meaninglessness, and he escaped that through a creative breakthrough. And I think creative breakthroughs in of themselves are violent things. They're not pleasant necessarily in the way that we like to, or at least not maybe we, but creativity is popularized or thought about that it is just this wondrous thing, to where no, it from what I can tell, if you're talking about somebody developing expertise, that's a quite arduous process. And if you're talking about somebody then facing the unknown and constraints or a problem, that's an arduous and uncomfortable process that leads to a lot of anxiety. And I think the best creativity comes when it sits there and manifests itself in some form of a death anxiety or a pseudo-death anxiety, somewhat in respects to the field or the domain. If I don't make this happen, what will the field think about me? Somewhat in respects to one's peers, I will lose status within their eyes, or I will be ridiculed through the community if this doesn't work. I promise you, whether you're looking at Robert Noyce's work, whether you're looking at Einstein's work, whether you're looking at Newton or whoever's work you want to sit there and look at, they had to take a tremendous risk. And they had to sit there and put this risk and anxiety on their shoulder, and sitting there and embarking on this creative journey and actually using it to push them to get the result. Because creativity, I see it as an emotional, motivational state. It's really damn hard to be motivated to come up with something that's truly novel and useful. But man, if you think you're going to die in some way, that's a really damn great motivator, because you're an organic life form. So, of course, if you have some sort of, or you're a social being, so you care about your social status in a way. And so if you think those things are going to be compromised, you damn well will come up with something, and something probably that will proceed and exceed what you've done before. It's just something that Chihai Csikszentmihalyi noticed, that when you have the requisite amount of skill, that you have an expertise, and then you are presented with a problem that sits there and puts you in face to face with the unknown, confronts you with anxiety, new things emerge, new useful and powerful and just impressive things come out of it. It's sitting there and putting yourself before a challenge even. And so I'm going to return back to the analogy. So you have a hero and they have to go and face the dragon in order to get the gold. And if you're talking about creativity, I think creativity, it can't be looked at just in one manner, that it's I think in the way that people look at creativity right now, it's divorced from its nuance and all the ways in life in which all the ways in which life presents itself to create a giant creative breakthrough. It's like it's somewhat contained in the individual, but it's contained in the environment and experiences. And excuse me, it's this it's this facing of the dragon, of this facing of the thing that which could kill me, that thing which could ruin my career, that thing that which could ruin me, or that problem within my own psyche that I'm not ready to face, or I don't feel that I can face it. It's facing that thing and overcoming it that leads to something creative. I notice in myself, I'm not trying to blow, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I just know that I'm a physics major and a math major, and when I actually come up with something creative, it's because I'm faced with some problem that I don't know what the hell I'm doing with it, I'm faced with it and I have to solve it, and I come out with some amazing things when under this pressure. And it's like, think of Queen, under pressure. You need to be under pressure to get true creativity out of yourself. It's why when researchers are talking about constraints, or other creative or knowledge professionals are talking about putting themselves under constraints, that's a way to manufacture that pressure in order that's needed and necessary for creativity. I don't believe you can get creativity if you're not sufficiently motivated in order to be creative. I don't believe you can get creativity if you're not emotionally stirred and riled in not so much a positive way. I think that you have to experience a tremendous set of negative emotions throughout a process, achieve a result, and then experience a positive elation from that trial, which will continue to bring you back time and time and time again to seek out flow and to seek out the creative breakthrough, to seek out the creative state. But creativity, it's something that is contained within constraints. It's something that's held within a field, and it's something, and within that, it's necessary for the individual to face problems, and these problems have to be sufficient enough to produce anxiety and discomfort. It's a simple saying, and leave your comfort zone, but I don't think that that quite captures what's going on in creativity. That's something that captures what's going on in development and growth. But creativity, it seems to be a little more than development and growth. It seems to be jumps and leaps in abilities, jumps and leaps through abilities by taking and going through a network of the brain that deals with fight or flight. And it's like, you need to engage that in somewhere. An individual needs to engage that some way to be highly creative. It just seems to me, through the research I've done, that that's something that all highly creative individuals do. I don't know, Riemann, when he wrote that paper and he presented it and changed calculus and mathematics forever, he didn't know what he was doing, and he was pretty dang anxious about it. He thought Gauss was going to reject the paper. To me, it's so fascinating, because you can look at it, you can look at anybody, you can look at I don't know anybody, I don't know anybody, so I should retract that statement. I know from the people I've looked at and researched and observed, and I know from my own experiences, that problems and death anxiety matter in creativity. It's also why I don't think it can be taught in education, because You want people to have a positive experience in school. You want them to have a nervous enough experience that it stretches the individual out of their comfort zone. But I don't know if you want to put individuals in a position that could potentially psychologically scar them, because that's what it seems like highly creative people do. They go to that place that could cost them, and that cost sits there and creates and rises out of them something new and something wondrous. No guts, no glory. No pain, no beauty. No pain, no gain. So, yeah, that's on creativity and on problems and death anxiety.